changed the road so much.
They haven't kept
It
up
tells
with
you
it.
stay to the right. You see, you got to go to the left,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
and there's
yeah.
all these cranes. If you go down on the Palmetto where they're doing that giant overpass there, that's fantastic structure they're building.
826, 836 interchange.
That's
Yeah.
an amazing thing.
They say the
keep
next one.
changing. If you want to go south, stay to the left. You want to go south, stay to the right.
Maybe cross contamination.
And the signs are
Probably will.
current.
And my navigation keeps changing. It doesn't know which way to go.
Okay, folks, we all set?
You're gonna speak.
Good?
You're gonna.
Okay, good evening.
More like you're not gonna.
Welcome to the North Miami Beach Planning and Zoning Board meeting of Monday, June 8th, 2015. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? Thank you. Would the secretary please call the roll? Here.
Here.
Present.
Here.
Here.
Okay, thanks. Okay, is there any discussion of the minutes of our previous meeting, which was Monday, May 11th, 2015? If not, the chair will accept the motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. It's required that anybody who wishes to speak on any agenda item take an oath. If so, I'm going to need you to stand, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. So if you're here to speak about anything, please stand up, raise your right hand, and when we're all ready, just repeat after me. I. Say your name. Swear or affirm. To tell the truth. The full truth. And nothing but the truth. All right, thank you. You may be seated. In addition, anybody who's going to be speaking at this meeting is required to provide their name and address on the speaker sign-up sheet, which is with the secretary. So if you're going to speak, please make sure you sign in there. Also, since we've got a little bit of a bigger audience this evening, we're going to try to limit the time of all the speakers to around 2 minutes. So if you have anything to say, please say it quickly. Please try not to repeat what somebody else may have said, and please don't make me stop you. Thanks. Okay, so next would be old business. If the city planner can give us a report on that.
Certainly. Good evening. Under old business, we have 2 items from our previous meeting. Item 15001, which was a conditional use and site plan approval for the Holistic Recovery Center at the International City Building located at 152 Northwest 168th Street. They have not set a date for council yet. The second item that was reviewed last month was item 15-006, which was a code amendment for the elimination of the banner bond and clarifying the frequency and number of signs allowed. This is scheduled for council this coming Tuesday, June the 16th for first reading.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Just also want to make sure with who's going to be running the time clock.
I will.
Okay, you've got everything you need. You've tested it. It's all going to be good. Okay. I don't see 2 minutes. Okay, there you go. All
There
right.
we go.
We're all good.
I had
Perfect.
3, but
Okay, great. All right. Would the city planner please introduce the first item?
certainly. The first item for the evening, which is planning and zoning item 15-004, is a design build architectural studio. The applicant, one second, please. The applicant is Stephanie Halfin. She's representing Rising Assets LLC, is requesting site plan approval and setback variances in order to construct a 4,562 square foot, 2-story office building on a 7,589 square foot lot at 18200 Northeast 19th Avenue in the B1 or Limited Business Zoning District. The applicant has agreed to all conditions for the construction of this new architectural design build studio, which responds to the intent of the B1 Limited Business District. As I said, the address is 18200 Northeast 19th Avenue. It is a use by right. It is not a conditional use. It is requesting 2 variances, front and corner side setbacks. It went to TRAD on January 8th. It is before you this evening. It is zoning district B1, and it has a future land use designation of business. The applicant is here to make their presentation for you as the board.
Okay, would the applicant please come forward? I guess that's you.
Yes.
All
Hi.
right, please state your name and address for the record.
Stephanie Halfin, 96 Golden Beach Drive, Golden Beach, Florida, 33160.
Okay.
Basically, I thought they were going to project the images, so but it's a corner lot in 19th Avenue. The idea is that we're going to build our architecture and interior design studio plus construction offices for trail developments, and it's a freestanding building on if you look at the buildings right next to it, we're not asking for anything that does not have, the rest of the buildings that are next to it does not have. They all go to the front of the setback and the side of the setback. For some reason, the code at some point changed, or I don't know what happened, but it didn't allow to go all the way to the setback, which is over here. All of them, absolutely all of them do that. So in order to have a coherence within the street, we're requesting this variance. We're not asking for any special privilege, just to continue with what we can see on the same street with the same zoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, or?
No, it's
Okay.
two-story, 4,500 more or less feet on the air. We have 15 parking spaces, and we are trying to make it as nice as we can.
Okay, perfect. All right, so do any board members have any questions for the applicant? I guess we'll start with Mr. Mosier.
So you want to be in line with the
Yes.
either side.
Yes.
My comment is a nice job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Smuckler?
I'm just trying to figure out which are the 2 sides that you're requesting the variances for. One is the front,
Yes.
so which is the front?
The front is it's on 19th Avenue,
So that's this.
which is this one over here, and it's this over here, this elevation. All of the buildings are actually right on the property line. We're not going to be right on the property line. We're going to leave, I think, 9 or 8 feet.
9 feet.
For
9 feet.
9 feet for landscaping and walk-through area. So that's one. And however, if we were to take the setback that it's proposed in the code, we were to be set back 25 feet, which it would look bad on the street and doesn't benefit. Then on the other side, which is this one over here, which is 182nd Street,
That's facing 182nd.
exactly facing 182nd, it's the same situation as you can see over here. They do the same thing, and again, is to have a proper use of the corner lot and a cohesiveness with the rest of the buildings on the area.
So the 0 feet of setback on the side,
Yes,
you still have the parking and the swale, I guess, is that the way it's shown?
yes.
Drawing?
You still have, because it has an enormous.
The right of way is 80
right-of-way.
foot, is 80 foot wide, the right of way.
Right.
Yes.
So those,
And they meet for their occupancy, the parking space.
That is correct,
Is
yes.
that the parking under the structure?
Correct, yes. In the back. It's not under the structure, it's fully open, but it's in the rear.
Yeah.
Oh,
On private property, yes.
Mhm.
And they are performing the public property improvements for the parking.
got it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kreisberg?
The reason it had a 25-foot setback is because it was a residential unit there, or it was originally?
it's, the zone is B1, which is the low-intensity neighborhood business zone. So those are the setbacks. They have wider setbacks. But when you look at the neighborhood that has grown up at the north end of 19th Avenue,
All these,
they all
came
fit
in for variances?
you know, we haven't researched it that far back, but certainly the build pattern goes up to the front, and this building, this beautiful modern architecture, fits in. This is what we're looking for, and you know, the building's pushed to the front is good urban design. The parking is in the rear, the building meets the street. It will make a cohesive building line
So
with the rest
we're,
of the...
we're, so you're in favor of tearing down this beautiful, historic little shack that's on the property?
Hey, it's a sunray. Don't knock
illegal-
it. It's a sunray.
With its illegal
Given the commercial...
structures in the back to replace it with this beautiful
Yes.
architecturally modern building?
Yeah, given the commercial zoning here and what's being proposed, relatively low-intensity professional offices, this seems like the perfect fit, and staff is thrilled with this application.
But if we had decided to bump out the residential, which is behind it, right to the street, and rezone it, and that they couldn't then build what would make a lot of sense, wouldn't you think that would it be kind of absurd and unfair?
Not sure I understand. This is commercial zone.
I understand that, but just as a policy matter, if somebody on the city decided that we should have residences fronting 19th Avenue and decided to put the R4 on, just make a little square, and then they were prohibited from building what they had legally been able to do, wouldn't that be absurd?
But it hasn't happened.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
But would it be absurd if
That would not be good plan.
Okay, just looking to the future. Beautiful job, beautiful
Thank you.
package, good luck.
Thank you.
Do we want to put those, the presentation boards so that they can get them on the camera better? Because they really haven't, I don't know if you want to just have it for the record, maybe put down, I think if they get them over here by the monitors, no, I think if you,
There it is.
okay. Okay, just at least, just have it so that at least it's documented on the, and then if you want, you can just put the other one up there too. So this way everybody can see it for a
Yeah,
minute.
this was basically a recap of what's in the area. Yeah.
Okay,
So this is setting the tone for new redevelopment.
okay, perfect. Okay, Mr. Nguyen.
I have no questions. It's a very nice project.
Thank you very
Very
much.
nice drawings.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, just one question. What's the number of cars required? Was it 9?
Required at 814, we're above that.
Okay. Just a question about parking spaces that close to the corner? The back out spaces?
It has the proper, we left and we discussed this with the planning. It's that we have the proper,
Yes, we do it beyond the tangent line.
Okay.
So it works. It's the same way it's done throughout Government Center, behind City Hall, back here.
Was there, in the package, and I don't see it, was there a reference that, the warranty deed was included in the package? 'Cause I don't see it. Or isn't that normally put in the packages? No?
No, not that I'm
You bought
aware
the
of.
property, right?
yeah.
You didn't move in?
I remember the day you bought it.
Yeah.
It's a big company. I see them all over.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think so at some point, I think maybe the last meeting they asked for it because we submitted it. So at some point, I don't know, you have it. The city has it.
All right, so is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? If so, please come forward. And let the record reflect that no one has come forward. Okay, I guess there's no further discussion at this time from the board. Could we have the city's recommendation?
Certainly. The Planning and Zoning Department recommends approval of this project subject to the conditions that are outlined in your staff report, which they have agreed to.
Okay, so can the applicant accept those conditions? Are you aware of those conditions? Do you
No.
know the conditions?
Nope.
Okay.
Yes, in the staff report, I forwarded them to you, but I'm happy
Sorry.
to give
Why
them
don't
if
you
you
just,
want to read them over
let
real
her
quick.
take a quick look and review them.
Sorry.
And,
didn't see it. Yeah, sorry, it was for the previous meeting. I thought it was for this one. Yeah. We accept.
Okay, perfect. All right, would someone like to make a motion on this item?
I move for approval of the site plan approval with the variances for item 15-004.
Okay, we have a second.
Second?
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, perfect. If you'd like your plans back so you can have them for the council, you can save a couple trees.
Thank you
Come
so
on up
much.
and get those, okay. Huh? Yeah, come on up.
Good luck.
Just to return the thing.
Okay. I also like to recognize that we have Councilwoman Phyllis Smith with us. Thank you for coming. Okay. So would the city planner introduce the next item?
Certainly. Our next two items pertain to the same property. First, we're going to deal with a comprehensive plan amendment. The applicant, in this case, the city of North Miami Beach, is requesting amendments to the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, and text changes to the future land use element in order to amend policy 1.8.2, open water and transportation corridors, amend the future land use map to change the future land use designation of certain property, and apply the amended open water and transportation corridor designation to those properties shown as Exhibit A in your package. This action is at the direction of the mayor and council, who discussed the matter at their April 21st, 2015 council meeting and directed staff to prepare amendments to rezone, redesignate Mall Lake as conservation/water. There is no address. It is known as the Mall Lake. There is no conditional use, no variances. It is before you tonight, and the person presenting on behalf of the city is Assistant City Manager Richard Lorber.
Okay.
Thank you, Carlos, and members of the Planning and Zoning Board. I'll present from here.
Okay.
My name is Richard Lorber, and as Assistant City Manager, I will be making the presentation on behalf of the city. A little background about me, because this is a quasi-judicial hearing. I have worked in the field of city and regional planning for the past 23 years. I have been a certified planner with the American Institute of Certified Planners for over 16 years. I have master's degrees in both planning and economics, and have taught college-level planning courses at FAU. I've served a variety of leadership positions in the profession. I'm also certified by the U.S. Green Building Council as a LEED accredited professional, and LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. In summary, I'm a qualified professional planner with years of experience in land use planning issues. I just put that on the record because it could come up. So that's my background. Now I'm going to talk about both the comprehensive plan and the zoning items in the same presentation. Later, we'll double back and take each one separately. But because they're basically two sides of the same coin, I'm going to make one overall presentation. Item 15-007A is a comprehensive plan amendment, and item 15-007B is a zoning amendment. So these are two items before you. Both deal with Mall Lake. More specifically, and Carlos went into this a little, the subject property consists of 3 contiguous parcels of submerged lands making up that portion of Mall Lake located within the municipality of North Miami Beach. These parcels are privately owned by the Everett William Trust, the successor to the previous longtime ownership of Mall Lake by the Williams family. The applicant for these applications is not the property owner. It is the city of Miami Beach. North Miami Beach, excuse me. It is the city of North Miami Beach as the applicant. The applications are submitted at the request of the mayor and council. Carlos indicated at April 21st council meeting, staff was, a discussion was held and staff was directed to bring this through. Item 1 amends the text of the future land use element, policy 1.82. That policy contains all the city's future land use category designations. And there's one that this is modifying. It's modifying the category currently entitled Open Water and Transportation Corridors. So currently that category exists in 1.82. The amendment changes the name of this category simply to water, and it clarifies the purposes and uses associated with this land use category, and ensures that these areas, including the newly designated subject Mall Lake properties, are actually shown on the future land use map. So that's the comprehensive plan. It changes the text to call this category water, and it designates the Mall Lake properties as this water on the future land use map. Item 2, the zoning item, amends Chapter 24, Article 5 of the Zoning Code to add a new zoning district, the Conservation Zoning District, that doesn't currently exist in our zoning code. So it adds a new zoning designation, Conservation Zoning District, and it amends the zoning map to zone the subject property and zone it as Conservation District. The proposed action would be in conformance with other municipalities that have similarly situated lands which are designated with their comprehensive plans, within their comprehensive plans, with an appropriate conservation designation. The portion of Mall Lake that is located within the city of Aventura was designated as water and zoned Conservation District 16 years ago in 1999. And this is essentially what we're doing today here. A little bit about Mall Lake. You're all familiar with it, but I'll read it anyway. Mall Lake is located adjacent to the Biscayne Bay Aquatic Preserve in a direct line between the Oleta River and its outflow into Biscayne Bay. In your staff reports, Exhibit B and C show maps of the area where you can clearly see Mall Lake is in that direct line between the bay and Oleta River. It shows that it is in close proximity to the county-owned Graynolds Park and the state-owned Oleta River State Park. So it's in close proximity to these natural areas, these green conservation areas. Now, the vast majority of the Biscayne Bay Basin, all the way from south of Miami up to almost the county line, the vast majority of the Biscayne Bay Basin is government-owned and protected for conservation. Mall Lake is one of the few remaining privately owned tracts of submerged lands located in the Biscayne Bay Basin. Most local residents are unaware that this water body is privately owned and not under the same regulatory and environmental protections as the open waters of Biscayne Bay. Its character, visually, aesthetically, and with respect to marine life and the environment, is very similar to the open waters of the bay. The main difference for Mall Lake was that it was formerly a rock quarry and not an original part of Biscayne Bay. Mall Lake is listed as a critical habitat for the endangered Florida manatee, and the manatees dwell in the shallow bay waters and feed on a variety of vegetation. They're known to be in Mall Lake. You may have seen them. Nearby residents are under the impression that the open waters of the lake would always remain open and preserved like other areas throughout the basin. It is difficult to foresee how a large-scale, full-service residential development within the lake would be compatible with the surrounding conservation lands or the adjacent residential uses. Approval of these proposed amendments would be in support of the city's comprehensive plan policy to ensure reasonable protection of natural resources and environmentally sensitive land. And it would clarify the lake's status as conservation land, leaving no ambiguity about the potential for any large-scale development of the property. Now a bit about the valuation of this property. The Mall Lake parcel, these three parcels, the entire parcel is valued by the Miami-Dade property appraiser at $52,847. The entire lake, $52,847. That's $449 per acre. this is a very low valuation of the property. You're all aware that vacant developable land in northeast Dade County ranges from several $100,000 an acre to over $1 million an acre. So this is not that. The extremely low nominal valuation of the property indicates that the property is considered by the property appraiser's office as essentially undevelopable. The valuation reflects that the land contains little economic value given the existence of existing local, state, federal laws and policies regarding planning and development, environmental considerations, and the practical realities of construction on submerged lands. Therefore, there really are no investment-based expectations for this property. The property owner or prospective buyers of such property could not reasonably expect that this property would be the basis for a significant investment of capital seeking a return on that investment of a nature similar to other property development projects on dry land. It's just not the same thing. Now, note that this proposed designation of conservation does not eliminate all economic uses of the subject property. It permits that private open water areas could be used for recreational and commercial boating facilities, passive outdoor recreational uses, fishing, boating, and camping facilities, and other water-oriented uses not in conflict with water management and wildlife protection. So that is our argument for redesignating and rezoning the Mall Lake properties to water and conservation district. At this time, I will close. I'll ask Carlos to read the rest of the Planning and Zoning Department recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
So I will speak first on the comprehensive plan portion, and then we'll read the zoning portion separate because they're two separate ordinances.
Okay.
Our department analysis and recommendation. Based on the comprehensive plan goals and objectives, the location of the site in relation to the Greater Biscayne Bay Aquatic Preserve, and concerns expressed by surrounding residents, which include whether the development of Mall Lake will adversely affect the public health, safety, welfare of the properties and others, including adjacent property owners, whether the development will adversely, I'm so sorry I read that twice, whether it will adversely affect navigation or the flow of water and cause harmful erosion or shoaling, or adversely affect the fishing and recreational values or marine productivity in the vicinity of the development, and the temporary lowering of water quality during construction activities. The Planning and Zoning Department recommends the implementation of this amendment as proposed.
That's for,
This is for the comprehensive plan portion,
Okay.
which is the first item we're
Let's come first.
okay,
We're
so
reading.
we're going to talk
Yes.
about one item at a time. Okay.
correct, yes.
Okay.
Unless the legal counsel recommends that we
No, I
we
think
take one at a time?
I think
Very
we
well,
one at a time.
okay.
Okay. All right, perfect. So I guess at this point, I'd like to open up to the board members to see if anybody has any questions regarding this, starting with Mr. Lynn.
Thank you. The north end of Mall Lake belongs to Aventura. I see a line going right across this lake.
Yes, actually, the north end of Mall Lake is located within the municipality of Aventura. It is owned by the same owner as the owner of our North Miami Beach parcels, but it's in Aventura.
And what about Little Mall Lake, or what they would call Hiccup Lake, or up there?
I have not gone that far
Up by
with that.
Del Prado and
I think that would clearly be in Aventura, but I don't know if that's the same.
Oh, it's Aventura,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Privately owned?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Okay.
Doesn't Eden Isle own part of the submerged land surrounding their condos?
You mean Point East?
Point East.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's
Okay.
There is some background there, but not relevant to this.
yeah.
And what becomes of the tax burden if this gets rezoned?
Again, I described the existing valuation as very low. If this rezoning and redesignation goes through, and that information is provided to the property appraiser, normally if this changed the value at all, that might have an impact on the tax. But I don't see that it changes the impact, because there's no, they're not saying that it's able, they're not saying it's worth anything a lot of money right now. So I don't think that, I think our report states that this action would not reduce the assessed value of the parcel. It's already extremely low.
Okay, but a private owner is paying taxes on a piece of property that, that they would have no hope of ever using in any way,
No, but
Whether
Steve, I did mention.
water park or anything.
Well, no, if this goes through, they do, under the conservation zoning, they do retain permitted uses. I read that into the record, where not all, does not eliminate all economic use. The property can still be used for private open water, for recreation, commercial boating facilities, passive outdoor recreation uses, fishing, boating,
Okay.
camping facilities. So we're not buying the land from them. We're not taking away all economic value. In fact, what I just described under the conservation zoning might be more viable and than what they do
Okay.
there now, which is nothing.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Kreisberg.
Don't they moor boats there? I don't know if they collect a fee, but there's mooring.
I'm unaware of any licensed business at the location.
Okay, if it's privately owned and they can do certain things, can they restrict therefore use of it? What would preclude them from taking and marking out the boundaries of that and saying no private boating without getting a license or paying an annual fee or?
I don't think, if they could do that now, then they could do that in future. I think
Well,
there's some
I
sort of
know, but
easement.
once you put a certain burden on them, you're saying, plus you're saying that because they only were paying taxes on $52,000 of value, that's what it's valued at, then they had no expectation that the land had any value.
Right.
But what would you say to Governor Graham, who owned all of Miami Lakes and kept cows on it and was taxed as agriculture, which everybody knows is way, way, way under the value of the real estate, the underlying real estate.
And
So agriculture, which is taxed at such little value, except that the land eventually gets sold for development and people make millions off.
So what's your concern?
So the issue is, how does the fact that the county assessed it at $52,000 have any bearing on what the underlying value may be? If the
well,
un-
it's
if-
supposed
if-
to. And you're
How do you
discounting
compare it to
agriculture. I think that agriculture is a big business in Florida, that people make a lot of money.
But the land is not.
I think that the value, if you compare the valuation of a agricultural land in western Dade County,
Per acre.
you're going to be a lot more than what they're charging
I
this
understand
lady.
that, but you're not going to see what the real value of the land is. That's
But
my point.
again, that is what the land is right now.
Right, so once again, what's the point, or what's the concern of your point there?
My concern is that that really should have no bearing on the restriction of the use of this if we decide. You know, you just threw a lot of stuff out there as to why we should keep it a conservation, but because the owner wasn't taxed at the highest use. I thought this was
I think-
also in a B2 potential
No.
zoning.
No.
There's no zoning whatsoever on the.
There's no zoning on these properties.
Okay. What was it? Was it zoned before somebody dug a hole and hit water and took out the rock? You know.
I don't
Your
find
period of time
records on
was?
that right
Was it-
now.
Was it prior to the city being incorporated? What was the history
No.
of that?
We saw that the plats for Eastern Shores began appearing in the 40s, 50s. City Attorney's Office has all those plats, and that was dug. Our understanding is that the land in Eastern Shores was partially dug out of this Small Lake area. But, to the extent that there is any zoning on, we've given you the zoning map. There's no zoning on this property right
And those canals that are on Eastern Shores behind the property, what is their legal?
You have a copy of the ad graphic. You can see that the way the ad was done, it encompasses the southernmost canal and the first finger canal.
Right. I'm talking about the other fingers.
Well, the property appraiser records show these parcels under Williams ownership all the way to that, to 35th Avenue along that southernmost canal. I have no record or evidence of similar ownership of the unshaded waterways, but I do have the property record that shows the southernmost one
See,
is under their own.
I'm bringing a few of these issues up because I'm not saying that it wouldn't be beneficial to know that the lake will always be the lake, but the fact is nobody could predict the future. When I moved in there, the lake was a lake. At a certain point, I think they had boat races in the lake. When I was there, it was water skiing and everything going on, and then somebody said manatee, and now, a rowboat is the preferred method of transportation, and there's almost no boating going on in the lake. But that, nobody could say that their rights were being trampled on. Excuse me?
We'll get the public comment in a minute.
So my concern is that it's like, there's the old saying, let's let sleeping dogs lie. Why are we taking this potentially prophylactic action? Why? What is the underlying reason we're doing this now when potentially we're taking away property rights from a citizen? You're saying we're upgrading it, we're downgrading it. I don't buy that argument, but be that as it may. Why? Why are we proactively today, as opposed to last year, 20 years ago, 10 years from now, when actually has anybody pulled a permit to build on that?
No. About, I guess sometime last year, a preliminary application was put in to our Planning and Zoning Department for a dry run through our TRAD committee. And the Dutch Docklands Company, you may have read about it in the paper, but they proposed a residential development of floating homes in the Mall Lake. When it went to TRAD, many questions were left unanswered, and the application has not gone anywhere. There is no formal application. None of the concerns that were raised by the reviewers have been answered. And so the point of view of the city is we're aware that there is an entity out there that is seeking to do something here, and we are responding to that. Prior to this, it was not an issue. 16 years ago, City of Aventura incorporated itself and promptly adopted this exact land use and zoning for their portion of the lake sitting in Aventura's boundaries. Now, we're trying to do the same thing. And what this analysis is showing is that the development, that was put forward does not stand up. We believe that this is the time now to clarify and make clear that the zoning on this. I mean, right now, the application came in, there is no zoning. Nobody,
I think
we have to do something.
I think basically the sleeping dog was woken up when there was some development issues or development interest, And then I think at that point, that's when the city might have said, perhaps we should actually recognize this, where in the past, when the dog was left sleeping, I'm trying to explain to you.
No, you don't have to explain.
Oh,
I'm a
okay.
big
Well, you
boy.
were beating around the bush a little bit there, so I thought that maybe I would just help you
I'm a little bit of
get
playing
into it.
devil's advocate, and my position is that it was not something, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that it was initiated by the city planner and the planning department and the legal department. That's all I'm going to say on that. I don't think that you,
This amendment was initiated at a discussion item in front of the city council
I know, but you.
on
in your-
April 21st.
But
That's where it was
you
initiated.
didn't see that as an issue for the last year and a half that you've been serving as a city planner.
Sometimes it takes some conscientious residents to bring some issues
No,
forward.
actually,
and
I've been,
that's what a city's all about.
and I've been on the job here, almost a year.
Okay.
Early in that tenure, I was informed that there was this concept out there. I've been studying it.
Right.
I understand it. I've visited the offices of regulatory agencies. I've researched this with the legal department. No, it's not just all of a sudden, but we're trying to do the right thing.
Okay.
And then if the council then brings this up and say they're aware of this and they understand, what is their policy options? We gave them 3 options. We said do nothing, do something, or do another thing. And they chose this,
Okay.
and we're
Chose this.
so this is properly before you,
I'm not saying it's not.
and this is not happening every day in every city. This is a little unusual, so bear with us. But I
Trying to
think
get
we're doing the right
background-
thing.
The background.
All right.
How we came to this.
You good, Mr. Kreisberg? Mr. Smucker, you want to reinforce Mr. Kreisberg's thoughts?
You partly answered a question that I had. The question was those other canals that are not shaded. But I'm not sure I understand the answer. So who does it belong to? And what's the zoning on those? On these other canals?
At this time,
I mean, is
can't
it
easily
an
answer
issue?
that.
Yeah?
I mean, we use the services of the property appraiser online to view property appraiser records.
Okay.
And the property appraiser records show parcels under these 3 subject parcels and the ownership. If one tries through that method to click on that other canal, nothing comes up. But nothing comes up when we click on the road right away or
Okay.
other things that are not assigned a folio number. I think in the months coming in the future, I can look more at that, try to get an answer. But I will tell you that at this point, the shaded portion, which is the southernmost canal, One Finger Canal, are clearly shown by the property appraiser as under Williams ownership. And so we need
So
to
if it's
to
not,
address that.
what ownership could it be? Where could it be?
That's a
Yeah.
good question.
Well, it was dredged, right, by the.
And it shows on the plat as waterways.
Waterway.
Right.
That's
But there
typically
was
what we-
land on top of it, and it was dredged to make those finger canals.
Maybe I could offer that after we accomplish this, we will come back and relook at this very specific issue for any other bodies of water in the city. So we had talked about a couple other areas that we're still researching the legal
Right.
for Sky Lake. And so I will include the remaining canals as part of our research. And perhaps on our second go-round, we will designate
Okay.
those. But these are the parcels we have identified as being privately owned, open water. Those are the parcels that we feel should carry this designation.
Okay. I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mosier?
Under this zoning, you said that the owner would not be restricted from any commercial uses, boating or whatever.
Conservation zone.
Conservation. What would the floating houses be designated as? Houses or boats or?
That's a good question also. As far as,
Could they call themselves boats and then
No,
be allowed
I-
to build?
without getting too far into it, because we're really not reviewing that project tonight, but my understanding was they were to be considered houses.
Right.
That it was essentially a residential development in the lake.
Right. A boat would not be permanently anchored. A boat would be something that would be able to navigate itself with an engine, propulsion.
There's
different
a
things
court
like that,
case out of
so-
Palm Beach
It's
that
like an Evinrude on the back of it.
Right.
They're not
I'd like to
vessels.
see you move it.
they're not vessels. That's been determined.
Right.
So, you know, again, it's an unusual thing, but it would not be, a residential development of that nature would not be permitted in a conservation zone.
Okay, thank you.
Right. But if it was a mooring area for yachts, that might be something that could be. If somebody was to set up moorings and rent them out for yachts to moor there, that's something that would be something that might fit that designation.
Remember,
But they'd have to be real.
again,
yachts.
one of the problems with our internal staff trad review is there is no upland to this parcel. This is entirely within the lake, and there's no upland associated with it. So any proposed development had serious questions to answer about access, parking, servicing, maintenance, all those things that on a dry land development, you know, we're used to reviewing. So, I guess
Okay.
it's a different kind of thing, but we do know that they're considered not vessels, so it's like a residential. But if you want to come in and do boat mooring, they could have done it. Yeah, they could do that, sure.
Okay. So anything else from the board at the moment? Okay. I guess at this point, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? If so, please come forward.
Excuse me.
You're gonna have to. There probably won't be repetitive, but
Should I read the zoning so that we have both? Or
no,
not
I
yet?
think, I think you got to kind of do each one individually. So,
Just try to limit
Hi there.
repetitive comments.
name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Frank Behrens. I'm the Executive Vice President of Dutch Docklands USA, 15051 Royal Oaks Lane, North Miami. Chairman, members of the Planning and Zoning Board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify a little bit about what my company is and what our intentions are here in Miami. Dutch Docklands remains very committed to the project on Mole Lake. Despite other uses that we can consider, we still want to go through with 29 floating villas on the lake. This is the first floating community project in the US, and it will generate tremendous positive PR and media attention for a city like North Miami Beach. For the next 10 years, you'll be bothered by global attention from global networks, CNN, newspapers, you name it. It can really put North Miami Beach on the map. Less than 5% of the total lake surface will be occupied by the islands. We're talking 29 islands, and the islands are at least 500 feet away from the lakeshore, which assures that the views of the lake are absolutely not interrupted, and boat traffic can easily cross the lake. The lake is privately owned. The lake has been and will continue to contribute tax dollars to the city of North Miami Beach. Based on the 2013 millage, with 29 residential islands, each appraised at $12.5 million, the islands will generate an ad valorem tax benefit to the city of North Miami Beach of no less than $2.793135. That's close to $2.8 million on a yearly basis. The total millage of our Mole Lake project will be over $8 million a year. The ad valorem taxes for the adopted budget of 2015 of the city of North Miami Beach are $11,725,440. So our islands
You're
will
going to need
increase.
to wrap it up soon.
Okay.
You're already out of time, but I'll give you just a few more seconds. So
Okay.
go ahead.
So our islands will generate 24% of your total budget, which is very important. Your city council recently finished a milestone project by amending the comprehensive code of the city to improve the development in the city. the renaissance of North Miami Beach. North Miami Beach will enter the 21st century, was said here by your council members. Yet the first step on a land use proposal after the comprehensive plan approval sent an opposite signal, namely taking steps to preclude a $400 million development proposed by Dutch Docklands. Our developments are 100% environmentally friendly and preserve the natural habitat of the lake. We teamed up with famous oceanographer
I'm going to need to
John
stop you in
Michel
about 10
Cousteau.
seconds, so please wrap
Just
it
give
up.
me one more minute.
Can I
Okay.
move that?
We teamed up with
Just wait, just wait. It's okay. Just a
we
few
we
more-
are very environmentally developers. The current owner of the lake, he was the one who founded North Miami Beach by constructing the US 1 and later Eastern Shores. And he was willing to sell the lake to us because we are sustainable developers, because we want to do it in an environmentally friendly way. You know, in cooperation with Cousteau, we want to study the bottom of the islands to see how we can create extra habitat. And I need to remind you that the lake is man-made. There's a rock bottom, there's no seagrass, there's no food for manatees, so that is not an argument.
Okay, I'm going to have to kind of stop you there because it's really not
The
exactly.
clock
context
still
of
says
today.
2 minutes.
Huh?
The clock still says 2
You
minutes.
said it again. Believe me, you've used probably about 8 minutes.
Okay,
So-
well, I'll finish. It's 2 seconds. We suggest a more thoughtful approach, including all relevant stakeholders, to spend the time to really understand what it is that we are proposing and come up with a mutual understanding that will benefit all the parties involved, while at the same time generating millions of dollars of revenue to the city of North Miami Beach that can be used for whatever purpose the community deems most suitable. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in favor of an opposition to? Please come forward. Oh, you have a list there? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had it. Yeah. Well, when I didn't realize there was that many people who want to speak. So if you have a list, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie Barsh. I'm attorney for Dutch Docklands. I'm with the law firm of Greenberg Trorig at 333 Avenue of the Americas. And also, I am one of the counsel of record that did appear before the United States Supreme Court on that case that was alluded to about the floating structures. I don't want to be repetitive because I know I have a very short amount of time, but I guess one of the things that we wanted to get on the record is that we strongly oppose the requested comprehensive development master plan change and the zoning. The city's actions greatly concern us. First, I guess, is the singular focus by which the city is attempting to deprive a property owner of its heretofore unquestioned property rights to develop his property. And we believe, as set forth in a letter that I presented to the city clerk at one of the last meetings, that will result in potential liability to the city that we think is really unnecessary. We think that this action is premature, and as my grandmother used to say, putting the cart before the horse. The city has a process by which they evaluate applications. That process, as you heard from Mr. Lorber, hasn't even yet begun because there are additional questions and issues that we're working on. No official detailed application have been reviewed by your board or the city. This deprives the public and decision makers as a whole from having the opportunity to evaluate the project. And as a result of that, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about our projects. There's a lot of myths about what the project is. People are talking about a project today that isn't even before you or hasn't even been presented before the city. Frank, Mr. Behrens talked about some of the benefits from the tax benefits. I just want to put on the record, since I have limited time, that we strongly disagree with the staff's reliance on the property values assigned by the county property appraisers. We believe it's misplaced.
You only have a couple more seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, new technologies and designs like those proposed for these residential islands, which is the key, can and do change land values. You look at fracking, it's in the news. Now you can develop those properties and extract gas. Those property values are going up incredibly. So technology does add value. So I guess I'll preserve my time for the zoning and continue on what I said for the zoning. But we urge you to not proceed allow the normal process to occur. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next. How many people do you have on their list? 14, okay. All right, name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Chris Williams, 1023 Northeast 46 Court, Oakland Park, Florida. I represent the owner of the property. And what I've heard tonight is that the reasons North Miami Beach has taken this action prior to seeing the permit application by Dutch Docklands is to preserve our environmental conditions of the lake. And another reasoning was the low value based on the property appraiser. Well, I just want to tell you why we partnered with Dutch Docklands. You know, we've owned the lake for 50, 60, 70 years, I'm not sure. That whole area originally was land and a rock quarry, and yes, Eastern Shores area was owned by the Williams family as well. So we developed Eastern Shores by partial, taking from the area that's now Mall Lake, which then became an water body or underwater land. So we now own the lake, and we've always had expectations of investment-backed expectations of high value of the lake. And we've also looked at, and we've had many different people come to us for different scenarios on how to develop the lake. And it was very important to us as a family to be a good neighbor to Eastern Shores and everybody else around there, including Aventura. But we felt we had a responsibility to the community and the environment. And that's why we continually remove derelict vessels from the bottom of the lake that there's no funding for from a state basis. And the state can't do anything when they're derelict, when they're floating. And they wait, and they just sit there. We don't have the authority to remove them, so they sink. And then we haul them out, and people in Eastern Shores have probably seen some of that work over the last 10, 20 years. So that's a continual issue. In fact, the boats that are anchored there are actually trespassing. But we, try to be good neighbors, and we don't want to upset the apple cart, but it is private land. So we want to partner with Dutch Docklands, and we were blown away by their environmental plan they had, and I just wish and hope that you're able to at least let them go through that process to explain it, let you guys ask questions, and go through the normal permit process. Thanks for your time.
Thanks. By the way, so you kept using we and us. Are you the attorney for the owners, or are you a family member?
Successor trustee of the trust that owns the lake.
Okay.
I'm in the family.
Okay. All right.
Any questions?
At the moment, no.
Thank you again.
I just want to clarify. Thank you. Okay, next.
Good evening. I'm not from a high-powered law firm. I'm not from a international development company. I'm an owner of a townhouse on Mall Lake. The name of the townhouse is Lakeview Townhouse. 10 years ago, my wife and myself were looking for a place to live, and we came upon Lakeview Townhouses. From the outside, it doesn't look like much, but when you walk in and you look out the back onto the dock, what you see is a pristine lake with a beautiful view. It really, to me, is a hidden gem of Miami, North Miami. What I'm hearing from the other people that have spoken previously is that this is about more money for the city. This is about putting North Miami on the map and so forth. Just last week, we saw an entire family of manatees from our dock just floating around. There are fish there. There are birds there. We feed the birds. We throw pieces of bread off the dock and they scoop it out. I cannot imagine that those manatees are going to be able to navigate their way through $12 million villas and still come in to find the piece that they find in our hidden gem. So I can't believe I've done this within 2 minutes, but in that time, I'm vehemently opposed to the development for big dollars for a multinational company to sell $12 million villas at the expense of all of the residents in the entire neighborhood. And there are many here today, and there are many that are not here. And having spoken to many of them, everyone shares my view. Thank you very much.
Can you give me your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. It's Ron Glantz, Glantz. My office address is 7951 Southwest 6th Street in Plantation. My resident address on Mall Lake is 2693 Northeast 165th Street, Lakeview Townhomes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Fortuna Smuckler, and I reside at 3207 Northeast 168th Street. At this moment, I am speaking on behalf of the Eastern Shores Property Owners Association, of which I am Vice President and a member of the Board of Directors. Our President, Chuck Asarno, could not be here tonight, but asked that this statement be read into the record. ESPOA supports fully the Zoning and Land Development Code amendments proposed in this ordinance, which will result in the application of the Conservation Zoning District designation to that portion of Mole Lake falling within the boundaries of the city of North Miami Beach. There has been overwhelming support by the residents of Eastern Shores to have the city enact this ordinance. We trust this body will act accordingly to recommend its passage. Now I'm speaking to you on behalf of myself. I wish I could understand why the city of North Miami Beach did not pass an ordinance to protect this area back in 1990s, just as the city of Aventura did. So in doing this, you are completing the protection and conservation of the whole lake. I have an extensive email list from the condo and townhouse side of Eastern Shores, and it shows that they also overwhelmingly support it. Nothing would be better than your approval of the conservation of all the bodies of NMB today, June 18, 2005, which happens to be World Oceans Day. Yes, a few comments I just want to answer to. Yes, there is food for manatees. That's why they're there, and that's why they want to be there. I think Mr. Lin was trying to maybe get at how much taxes they're paying right now. It's $655.25 is what they're paying in taxes at the moment. Ms. Barish, you say that there's misconceptions. There isn't any misconceptions, and I would appreciate if you don't insult our intelligence. And about the boats being there indefinitely.
You need to wrap it up.
Okay, he spoke, the first guy spoke, I'm speaking.
I'm giving you a little, I just want to give you a little bearing of where you are.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, last thing. The boats being there indefinitely, yeah, they're there indefinitely because there's boats there. I've been tracking it, and there's boats that take forever, and I know the police department has to plea and beg. So whenever they have taken boats out, and they have, it's after begging and pleading, and there's 2 boats there right now that they've given, that to my understanding, that they've given permission to allow to be there. There's no lights, there's nobody on there, it's just there for no other reason, they just allow it to be there. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Okay, next. Okay. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I am Claudia Gallegos. I live on 16558 Northeast 26th Avenue at the Reef Club. The Dutch Docklands approached our property to try to use one part of our property, the tennis courts, to have access to a lake. The lake does not have access. I am focused on one thing. If we change the code, and we allow to build something on that lake, now our $12 million houses tomorrow are going to be 12 or 20 floor buildings. So I highly recommend that we protect this area. We have very few spaces in North Miami Beach that are so beautiful and for the enjoyment of everybody. So I hope we can do a good work all together. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, next. Okay, name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Carol Payne, and I live at the Reef Club, 16546 Northeast 26th Avenue, apartment 2D, North Building. And I'd like to approach this from a different angle. I'm very much opposed to any development on the lake, and I can understand about the ecology and all of that. However, I would like to talk about one thing. they were talking about the tax base. And from what I've read in the papers, we're talking about $3.5 million a year that would be given to North Miami Beach in taxes. Okay, that is quite a bit of money, I have to say. But on the other hand, you have to weigh it against the entire community almost 100% of the Reef Club and surrounding areas that would be very unhappy about this kind of development. And you are developing across the lake two very large projects, the harbor for one, and the Marina Palms, which will also give you a great deal of money in tax base, which should leave our beautiful lake pristine and just as lovely as it's always been. So please, please, do us all a favor and vote accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please. Okay. Name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Richard Pies. I live in 16546 Northeast 26th Avenue, North Building of the Reef Club. After we spoke to the people of the Dutch Docklands, they came to talk to us. We waited for them to give us a proposal to talk to us again, and they did not. So then that's when I requested the board, as a board member, to do a referendum. In this referendum, the people who wanted or had a good idea of going for something with the lake could not say, well, what could we do if we don't have anything in writing, we don't have anything verbal? They just disappeared. Okay, so I said, but the no's have a right also. So we supported not to, against it. We have enough votes to block it on any type of measure. Now, another issue here is what are they going to be building? They are bona fide oil rigs. Now, I understand that one of these guys comes here and says, oh, my oil rig can withstand a Type 5 hurricane. Well, we don't want a Type 5 hurricane in our land because it will destroy everything. But besides that, what happens is the oil rig is steel, and it will take the Category 5 hurricane. But the houses, the roofs, and all that is next to it will not even take a Hurricane Type 1. It will become an Exxon Valdez type scenario that we would have. It will, all of it would go into the water. Yes, what is steel will stay there. The oil rigs take a Hurricane 5. They can withstand it. You have patents to teach it, but a roof will never withstand a Hurricane Type 1 and the damage it will have, because Wilma is the case that we're using. But Wilma was a Hurricane 4 in Cancun, and it did a boomerang, and it hit us from a west side.
You need to wrap it up, though.
It was one that destroyed infrastructure. We were out here in North Miami Beach for almost a week without electricity. Now, that type of hurricane was a Type 1. And that's what created this lawsuit that we're talking about as a precedence. Now, a Type 5, which you're talking about, Type 3, would destroy all of the lake, and who's going to pay the bill to fix it? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Okay. Name and address for the record, and also you might want to move the mic a little closer to your mouth.
I'm Tammy Fox Isikoff. I am an attorney. I live at 3206 Northeast 168th Street, North Miami Beach and Eastern Shores. This isn't about Dutch Docklands Day. They don't have a permit before you. They don't have any requests before us. This is about Mall Lake and what it means to have Mall Lake in North Miami Beach. That's what's before you today. What does it mean to have Mall Lake? I disagree with you, Mr. Kreitzberg, because you said there are no boats on Mall Lake. There's my boat on Mall Lake, 2 of my boats, and a jet ski that was stolen before, and 2 paddle boards. We're always out on Mall Lake. I see boats. I'm on the corner. I'm on the front. I see boats all the time on Mall Lake. I enjoy Mall Lake tremendously. I see manatee. I see tarpon. I have swum in Mall Lake, and believe me, there is grass on the bottom of Mall Lake because my legs have gotten creepily stuck in the bottom of the grass, which is really a creepy feeling. I wonder, and somebody really should do research on this, what was represented to the owners in Eastern Shores when that land was originally subdivided and sold 50 years ago? Just like a developer will say this land is reserved for a park or playground or whatever, I guarantee you that it was never represented that the owners who subdivided and gave everybody this beautiful waterfront piece of property said, well, we're going to build a condo in the middle of that lake, or we're going to put homes in the middle of that lake. It was sold as a pristine waterfront area. That's why we bought that property. That's why the original owners in that area bought that property. Now, a lot has been made about hurricanes, etc. I'm going to finish up. During Hurricane Wilma, which was a Category 1, waves hit my second-story window. It destroyed my dock. It pretty much destroyed my house. And I have to say, I cannot even imagine what would happen if there were structures in that lake. It belongs a conservation area. It is a navigable waterway. It is a protected waterway right now. We are not the only obstacle to development. And believe me, there are far greater obstacles than our zoning and our issues here. So I am not afraid of a lawsuit. That's why I became a lawyer. And please don't be afraid, because believe me, we are not the obstacle to their development. They have 100 other obstacles besides this being a conservation area.
Okay, thank you. Next, please. Name and address for the record.
Hi, Stacy Roskin, 3225 Northeast 167th Street, North Miami Beach. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Mr. Lorber, thank you for your presentation. So basically, I just want to state that I'm in support of everything that was said before me. My husband and I, 12 years ago, also bought this house because when we first walked in, we saw this beautiful lake, and as well as many of the other houses that line the lake. I'm sure they purchased it for the same reason. You know, it's you talk about sleeping dogs. Well, I'm telling you, there's going to be 29 massive elephants in our backyard if this goes through. It's hard to believe that they think also that these houses are going to be sold for $12.5 million. You don't even get houses sold like that on Fisher Island or in some of the other areas in Miami. I'm concerned that these houses are going to be built. It seems, what's the word? I don't know how people are going to be able to live there full time. So my concern is that a lot of these houses will be sold for like party houses, for showcasing their interest in selling future houses in this hemisphere, because I know they built them elsewhere. So there'll be party houses. There'll be a lot of noise. I don't know about security and safety. You know, having police boats over there, fire boats. I mean, and the waste that's going to be there. So that, in addition to the environmental reasons, there's a lot of other reasons why I would hope that the Planning and Zoning Committee votes against this. And I will go one step forward further, that if indeed we do pass this, that the city even contemplates at some point buying Mall Lake, like the government has, the state and cities have done elsewhere, to prevent even mooring of yachts and other things. So basically, thank you again, and hope you vote in our favor.
Okay, thank you. Next, please. It is on the list. This is the last one? Okay. Okay, name and address for the record, please.
Dr. Barry Sugar. I live at 3220 Northeast 165th Street. I'm retired. I bought 2 lots in Eastern Shores 15 years ago. Because of the lake, the proximity to the fishing, that's all I do now is fish. I'm sort of a bum and just go out there. The amount of wildlife that we have in that lake, I'm out there almost every other day. When they talked about the manatee, we've had dolphin in the lake. I'm talking the mammals feeding in the lake. You can't develop that lake for anything. the federal and state governments wouldn't allow anything anyway. So by you all taking the first step and the right step, making it a conservation zone is the right way to go. And I will get out of here with letting you know that I think 99% of the residents feel that same way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Bruce Lamberto, 3420 Northeast 165th Street. To answer your question, Mr. Griggs, about where this came from, why now? This was citizen initiated. The residents of Eastern Shores, Western Eastern Shores, proposed this to the city. They lobbied their commissioner, their council people, they lobbied the city manager to go ahead and propose this because of the pristine conditions of the lake. As Ms. Ishikoff has stated, the only thing that's here before you tonight is this conservation zoning issue. We can't take into consideration possible applications in the future, high rises, other uses of the lake that's not before you tonight. So I'd really appreciate that if we do this, that it will protect the lake for the future, just as Aventura has taken that step. As far as I'd like to thank the Williams Family Trustee for being a good neighbor and allowing full use of the lake, and I hope that goes forward into the future. And as someone has suggested, maybe possibly we can work out a purchase in the future to compensate them for being that good neighbor that they are. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, 164th Street, 2669 Northeast 164th Street.
And your name?
Orly Rachel Auerbach.
Okay.
So, in this meeting, I keep thinking about my late husband, Zev Auerbach, who was the Aventura City Commissioner, and I just hear him in the back of my mind. He would really give his opinion here. Honestly, I think enough has been said about that lake, about the manatees and the dolphins, which I've seen both. Actually, last week I have a picture of 5 or 6 family of manatees that was there for 2 days, right behind my house, and we took a picture of it. And I think we need to do our homework and not allow this to proceed. As nice as the money, looks and is offered, let's really do our homework. And you have the support of all of us. There's many of us, like Ron Glenn said, that own houses in that street and in the area that live on the lake, and we're willing to do whatever we need to do to make sure that we preserve that lake. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward and speak on this particular subject? Let the record reflect that no one else has come forward. Okay. Saved by the bell. Name and address for the record, please. If you're not signed in, please do so afterwards.
Leslie Sardinia, 16480 Northeast 29th Avenue, North Miami Beach, Florida. Okay, I live right on the lake. Been there for 15 years. It is the reason why we moved there. Raised my kids there. I have, for 15 years, seen my sea ray, who's about this big with beautiful, round, perfect white spots. He's been jumping 6-8 feet the last couple weeks. He's gorgeous. I see the same dolphins come back year after year. The fin has a little hook in it, so I know what I'm looking at, and I see the babies come back. I've seen the manatee. I see the fish. I don't see, if I thought for 1 second that there would be a house out there that people throw their trash out, it's going to blow off. When you have winds, it blows. Well, I am in my lake, in the water, down there with these beautiful fish, pulling out the trash that already flows into my mangroves that are right there. And I'm cleaning every day, bottles, trash, all these things that just kind of flow that direction. I cannot even imagine for 1 second if there was one house out there anchored. Not for 1 second. So if we need to buy the lake, so be it. I'll buy the lake. Right here, I'll buy the lake. Don't tell my husband, but I'm buying the lake. I swear to God, I will do whatever I need to do to preserve that lake.
Okay. All right, we got one offer. Okay, is there anybody else who'd like to come forward and speak? Come on. Name and address for the record and sign in afterwards.
Yeah, I wasn't intending to speak because we have so many wonderful people here, but I wanted to address one very specific thing that was brought up by your board. My name is Elizabeth Winter. I live at 16558 Northeast 26th Avenue. It's Reef Club. Just wanted to mention the Dutch Docklands people said, and this is correct, that they have not even made a formal presentation. They don't have a permit. But it is in anticipation of this, it is the realization that they could, in fact, build these houses on the lake, something that no one even imagined years ago because the technology has changed. That such a project could happen is what has prompted all of the people in this community to provide this kind of response. Yes, I've seen the dolphin. No, I don't have the money to buy the lake, but I'd be happy to contribute to that fund because it is a very special area. The fact is that Little Mall Lake changed their zoning to conservation 16 years ago, and that's indicative of the validity and the value of that course of action. They didn't know at that time what could happen. We do know now what can happen, and I think that that's reason enough to pursue this. The only other thing I'd like to, and this is a question, I don't know for sure, but my understanding is that if there is a floating home, if there is a home on water, not on land, then it cannot be taxed for real estate purposes. That is not correct? I have a friend who has several floating houses, and he would be very unhappy if he thought that he would have to pay real estate tax on those. Right now, he does not. He's in Miami-Dade, not in North Miami Beach. But
Okay,
I
you're gonna
think
need
that would
wrap
have
it
to
up,
be
but thank you.
changed.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who's been inspired to come up and speak? Okay, let the record reflect.
Wants to make an offer.
Right, yeah, right. Let the record reflect that no one else has come forward. Okay, so I guess we've already heard the city's recommendation.
Yes.
And I guess what we need to do is vote on this item.
Correct.
And then we need to vote on the next item.
Well, you need to open the next item and
Right.
at least allow anybody to speak that has
Correct.
something
Correct. No, we're going to go through the
new,
process again.
subject only, new,
Okay.
addressing the
Can
zone.
I vote on together?
Okay, well,
Separate.
okay, is there any other board discussion on this before we move forward? I mean, I think that from the board perspective, I think at this point, we need to look at the application that we have at hand. That's what's been presented to us. That's what we're being asked to, give our, and once again, what we're giving is a recommendation to the council. We are not, we're not making any final decision. We're just basically passing forward a recommendation to the council. The council really makes the final and binding decision on these things.
I just want to say also that whether you think that the project is viable or totally opposed to it because you're in love with this former rock pit, which became our beautiful lake, we maybe want to consider whether this is the method that we want to use to possibly stop this development if it ever comes forward in the future, when there's so many other methods, so many hoops that we have to go through by being proactive, by by jumping the gun on this, we may be opening the city up to something which has unintended consequences, which is called defending a lawsuit. And I don't think that, as much as I love our legal department, we are going to wind up having to hire outside counsel. This is when nothing is happening.
Okay.
This is not.
I was just gonna say.
This is, you know, like, this is just jumping the gun, and this is just one man's opinion. I am not saying that I want floating homes. I also live on the lake or on the canal to the lake. I boat. I love the lake, but this may not be the method to go about doing this.
What is the since we have the benefit of the legal department of the city here? What is the legal position when it comes to this, ramifications, et cetera?
First of all, the primary mission of this board is to consider good, sound, reasonable planning principles. And I think that your assistant city manager has given you all of the reasons why staff believes that this is the appropriate zoning for this property. It's the same zoning that the city of Aventura, in its wisdom, adopted some 16 or 17 years ago. To be discussing legal issues, to be throwing out terms like taking and saying that the city is exposed to liability and that there are investment-backed expectations, those issues are totally beyond your jurisdiction. I have researched this particular matter extensively, and I can tell you that this matter would not be here if I felt in any way, shape, or form that the city would be exposed to a Bert Harris or a takings type of claim. I've been through this probably more times than I care to remember. When South Beach was in the process of being developed, every building that went up south of Fifth Street filed a lawsuit against the city of Miami Beach based on a takings claim, constitutional claims, Bert Harris claims. The city did not lose one case. It prevailed on every single downzoning initiative that it adopted in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Again, ask you to consider the issues that are planning in nature and leave the lawyering to the lawyers.
Yeah, and once again, that's why, I mean, it just seems to me from, where I'm sitting here and speaking to the board that we have to deal with what's in front of us. And so that's, the way I feel we have to look at that at the moment. So with that being said, anything else from the board? No? Okay. I guess at this point, we're going to need to make a motion on this item. Anybody who'd like to make a motion?
Well, I guess I'd like to make a motion to accept the amendment to the Mall Lake Comprehensive Plan.
Okay.
Did I say that right?
I second.
Accept staff's recommendation.
Staff's recommendation.
Okay.
To recommend approval.
To recommend approval of the comprehensive plan changes.
Okay.
Okay.
And at the moment, just to clarify for the record, we are dealing only with item 15-007 alpha, correct?
A, correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that being, huh?
Did I hear a second?
Second.
A second? Okay, so now we need a roll call.
No.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay.
4-1.
Right. Okay, so then the next item, I guess you're going to give us the city's recommendation on the next item.
Yes, I'll introduce it. Our last item for the evening is the second half, or Part B, of item 15-007. The applicant, once again, is the city of North Miami Beach. This time, it proposes a text amendment to Chapter 24, North Miami Beach Zoning and Land Development Code, Article 5, Zoning Use Districts, to add Section 24-59, Conservation Zoning District, creating a conservation zoning district and an amendment to the official zoning map referenced in Section 24-31 of the North Miami Beach Code of Ordinances to zone certain property and apply a conservation zoning district designated to those properties shown in your Exhibit A in your package. As the previous item, this action is at the direction of the mayor and council, who discussed the matter at the April 21st, 2015 council meeting, and has directed staff to prepare amendments to rezone Mall Lake as a conservation district and amend the zoning map to reflect the new zoning district. You wish for me to continue with the recommendation?
Yes.
Very well. Based on the comprehensive plan goals and objectives, the location of the site in relation to Greater Biscayne Bay Aquatic Preserve, and concerns expressed by surrounding residents, which include whether development of Mall Lake will adversely affect public health, safety, welfare of the properties or others, including adjacent property owners, whether development will adversely affect the conservation of fish and wildlife, including endangered or threatened species, or their habitats, whether it will adversely affect navigation or the flow of water, or cause harmful erosion or shoaling, or adversely affect the fishing and recreational values of marine productivity in the vicinity of the development, and the temporary lowering of water quality during construction activities. The Planning and Zoning Department recommends the approval of this amendment as proposed.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any board discussion on this item? We could start with Mr. Mosier.
No.
Okay, Mr. Smuckler.
No.
Mr. Kreisberg. Okay.
Repeat.
Mr. Lynn? No. Okay. All right, would anybody wishing to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application, please come forward? Do we have a list on this one or no? No? Okay, so if you have anything, anybody wants to come forward, please make sure that what you're speaking about is additional content to what we've previously heard. So with that being said, name and address for the record, please.
Chris Williams, 1023 Northeast 46th Court, Oakland Park, Florida. Representative of the family trust that owns the lake. And just like to further clarify my earlier comments, we partner with Dutch Docklands for environmental sensitivity reasons. So I understand that that's not going to be the case out of this meeting tonight. Didn't expect it to be with you guys, but we still are dedicated to the conservation of the lake. Okay, that's something we've always wanted to do. So looking at other projects, this was the best one. So now we've got alternatives. What is it going to be? We're going to dock barges in the lake, which we could based on the current zoning, and the zoning had just changed. I mean, we're trying to...
Excuse me, but the current zoning?
All right, just my 2 minutes here. What we're trying to do is establish the health of the lake for the next 100 years. And there's other projects we could do that would go into the new zoning or the new use or whatever you're talking about that we're not going to need clarification on. So you're going to do a zoning change on that again or a land use change on that again to get ahead of us? We're trying to be good neighbors, and we have not allowed boats to dock there. Someone said there's docks without lights that we gave permission to. That's not the case at all. North Miami Beach Police have called us many times, and we've always given them permission to remove the boats. So, okay, well, I didn't come here to be hostile, but I came here to show you that we are really trying to look at the future use of the lake. And this was by far the best alternative we thought was going to increase marine life. And I'm just disappointed that you're not going to allow them to go through that process. Even though there's hundreds of hoops you claim they have to go through, why throw this one up as well? Thank you.
Thanks. And by the way, from the perspective of the board, if that application was here today, we would be looking at that application. We have to look at what's in front of us right now.
I understand
So
that. But, I understand, and I empathize with the residents, and I think they bring up a lot of excellent concerns. And I would do the same thing as a resident. But I would also want to understand and look at the plan, because they're going to be under so much scrutiny for more than a year with all the different permits they have to go through, all the way up to Tallahassee, the FWC, the local, everything. It's not something that is going to slide through, obviously. I don't think they got their due time, and I think you're going to be disappointed in understanding what you're going to miss out on.
Remember that the ultimate decision is on the council, so you still have time to get ahead of this with the council to make sure that they have all the information
it sounds
they
like a
need.
big
So
I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
but we're,
Thanks for
we're,
letting
we're
me know.
sort of an advisory group.
And I understand
And the best advice would be that this is, in my opinion, premature to be doing this. There is no reason today to be changing zoning. And I know this is the only thing that is before us.
Right, and that's
But somehow this, people are concerned about manatees, and everybody is. This is why there's very little boating on Mall Lake, or if it is, it's very slow boating. Okay?
I agree.
That's the way of the world.
I agree
That's the way
100%,
it is.
and the manatees are a big concern.
So
but
we may be just precluding what, and I'm not saying it's a great plan. I don't know, but the idea may be like a great thing that brings $3 million annually to the city. And okay, we all live on Mall Lake, we live on the water, we're the privileged few. But there's a whole bunch of people out there, 35,000, 40,000 other residents who aren't privileged like us. Okay, well, tough on them, but it's a lot better that the city brings money to the coffers. Oh, we're big shots, we're going to buy the lake. We're going to give I don't know what that lake's worth, $5 million, $10 million? Instead of bringing in potentially $3 million, let's spend $10 million.
we wanted to bring a
To
partner
benefit
in that was going to give you all something that would be valuable to look at for future conservation.
This may be like when North Miami Beach gave away its beach.
Okay, well, anyway, just
We'll look back on it
I don't want
shamefully
I don't want
like
to stop
that.
you, but
I'm allowed to talk.
Yeah, you are, but I can tell you when to stop.
and also, just one last thing, and I'll leave. And again, I appreciate the forum you've had and letting us talk. The city of Aventura and their designation 16 years ago, going back into the research, it was done illegally, and that's going to change. That will be decided in a court of law. So don't hang your hat on the fact that Aventura did it illegally, that you can do it as well. Again, we are looking
Could I ask
at
if
the
you've notified
future of,
Aventura of that?
Sir?
Have you notified Aventura of that?
That's for another discussion. We're going to talk about your side.
Anyway, the main
I don't want to talk about Aventura's business, but I can tell you that is done illegally.
I guess the takeaway for you guys is you've kind of got the temperature and the feel, and this way, by the time you get to the council, you can kind of do what you got to do.
If we lose Dutch Docklands as a buyer, I can almost guarantee you the next buyer is not going to have everything that they have as far as the environment and the conservation goes. Not even close.
Okay. Well,
and if you don't let them present to you guys and you can ask questions, you don't know. I understand your concerns because I would have the same concern.
All right, guys, sir, you need to be facing this way.
Mr. Piper, I
Okay.
appreciate your time. Mr.
Okay.
Kreisberg, thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much.
you. Thank you. Okay.
My name is
Name and address for the record.
My name is Richard Pice, 16546 Northeast 26th Avenue. Now I'm going to go to a different angle. I spoke to Carlos and to Giselle. We were concerned, and we started asking questions. One of the main features that I hear is, that they had 3 lakes. So you have a nice partner because they're trying to find a place to experiment. Well, if they want to experiment, there have to be other places where they can buy all the land, develop something like this, and then there can be hard facts of the planning, of how to put these islands, the resistance existing. For me, for the city of North Miami Beach to do the unthinkable of not following through with Aventura and making the entire lake, not just half of the lake, conservationalist, and then at the same time develop an experiment. Yes, the amount that you could make a potential money is there, but the reason why people come here also is for our weather, and we have an extensive amount of people. Our real estate has gone back up. We're no longer in 2008. The properties went back in valuation. So the city's cash flow, which was very bad, has gone back normal. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and address for the record.
Tammy Fox Isikoff, 3206 Northeast 168th Street, North Miami Beach. We're not here about Dutch Docklands. They're not on your agenda today. They're irrelevant to this consideration, period. This is a body of water. I'm from Ohio, that I grew up spending summers down in actually Hollandale, and I spent every summer on Mall Lake. At the time, you're right, it was water skiing. Now it's more paddleboarding. I see paddleboarders and kayaks out there who don't necessarily are the privileged or aren't necessarily the privileged few. All of North Miami Beach enjoys Mall Lake. It's been there long before I even was a resident of Eastern Shores, and I even enjoyed it when I wasn't a resident of Eastern Shores. It's a beautiful piece of water, and this, all we're asking is to protect it. Today, that's all we're not asking you to stop Dutch Docklands. That's not on your agenda. I don't even know how this even came up today. This has nothing to do with Dutch Docklands. It's about ensuring the future quality and use of this lake into the future. That's all it is. It's not about tax money. That's not before you today. It's about the lake and preserving the use of it for all of North Miami Beach because it is a landmark.
But it's privately owned.
But it is a landmark. But I have a point of information. Did anybody ever check what was represented when that lake was subdivided? You know, I view the Mall Lake as nothing different than a area park where it was represented to the owners in the area, oh, this park is going to be available for your children to play at, and then a big condo was put up on the park. It's like Williams Island, where they've developed every square inch of the space, including the parks. What was represented when people, literally, when this area was subdivided? Has anybody ever looked at that? Because I guarantee you that people who bought houses in the area 50 years ago weren't told, oh, by the way, we're going to fill in this lake after you buy your house.
Okay, thank you. Name and address for the record, please. Huh?
When we're done, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Again, I'm Claudia Gallegos, and I live at the Reef Club, 16558 Northeast 26th Avenue. Mr. Kreisberg, I don't know where you live, but I live on the lake, looking, my window is to the lake. And I work from my window, and my desk is on my window, and I see the lake all the time. And every single day, there's people enjoying the lake. So, you know, it's your opinion that there's no people enjoying the lake.
Excuse me.
Yeah, well, you have your opinion, I have mine.
Speaking about privilege,
the second thing,
he's got 3 kayaks.
I said 2.
The second thing is that the consideration is to protect and make a recreation area. Mr. Williams, with all due respect, is talking about his money. And his interest is to become richer than his. So that is not what we are talking about here. We're talking about an area that is to for enjoyment of our city and neighboring people. So why we're discussing about that? We're discussing about the enjoyment and the protection of an area. That's it.
Thank you. Okay. Name and address for the record, please.
Stacy Roskin, 3225 Northeast 167th Street. So, Mr. Kreisberg, you mentioned tax benefits. So, in Eastern Shores, I may be mistaken, but I would think that the houses that live in Eastern Shores alone probably make up more, if not the same, than all the other houses, not talking businesses, in the rest of the city of North Miami Beach. So I think we have a valid argument when we're protecting our what we think is our tax base. That's number one. Number two, if we're talking about taxes, somebody else already made the point. There's the Marina Palms, there's the Harbor View, Intercoastal Mall is going to be developed. We are all for development, responsible development, that is great. You don't have to take away the one only waterfront property area in all of North Miami Beach, which a lot of people are moving to North Miami Beach, building there's a $5 million house being built right next to me. Why? Because of the lake. And if, you know, they mentioned that they don't have, they mentioned that they have not formally given any plans, but there's plans in the newspapers. There's plans on NPR. I mean, they have these plans. I mean, you look at the newspaper, and they took out a huge, big article with pictures, and the lake is like a pizza, a pepperoni pizza. There's the lake, and there's houses all over except for the Aventura area. So, I mean, they have the plans. So I don't understand why they haven't presented them to you. And unfortunately, if we have to come first beforehand to prevent having to go, to do this later, that's their own problem. I mean, that's why the committee in Eastern Shores was a bunch of us from Eastern Shores and Western Shores that met to figure out how can we do this proactively to prevent this from ever happening either with Dutchland or in the future with anybody else. And that's why we're making this motion to make Mall Lake a conservatory area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Carol Payne. I live at the Reef Club, 16546 Northeast 26th Avenue, apartment 2D, North Building. One thing that has not been discussed this evening, which I think should be, and that's the problem with noise on development on a lake. Does anybody here not hear the trains that go by at night, even when you are using your air conditioning and your windows are closed? Believe me, noise travels, and it's exaggerated when it travels over water. Now, when those homes are developed and people do move in, even though they're not full-time residents, maybe they're only here for a week at a time, but they do have nice things planned. They have parties, they have guests, there's talking, there's music, there's a lot of happiness, and it travels right around the whole lake. And I think that is something that should be under consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Name and address for the record, please.
Fortuna Smuggler, 3207 Northeast 168th Street. I'm just want to come up here for 2 points. The first one, I don't know if you've noticed, but no other resident has come up here to speak in favor of the project of the Dutch Docklands. Everybody here tonight is speaking in favor of the conservation of Mall Lake. You usually don't get that many people coming here. I know because I come.
Dutch Docklands wasn't before us.
All right.
Yes, but they could have still come and spoken that they don't want it conserved. People can come here and say, we don't want this conserved, yet nobody has come up here to say, we don't want this conserved. Everybody here is saying, we want it conserved, right? Are you understanding? Are you having like difficulties today?
Yeah, I'm very.
Because you're not like go there today.
I lack the intellectual capacity.
I see that. Yeah. Okay. So anyhow, I just I need to change the subject here because I need to get the attention of the camera and Mr. Williams said that he hasn't given permission for those boats to be there. That I said he did, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but now that he said that they're not there, I'm going to approach the police department and say that he said that he didn't give permission. Is that okay? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. I apologize for the information the police department gave me. Either I didn't hear right or I'm having the same problems Mr. Kreisberg is. Thank you.
Okay.
What's that, osteoarthritis?
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak?
All right. In closing, I have 3 points.
We have
Okay,
one.
well, we have one more speaker.
Okay.
Name and address for the record,
Yes,
please.
my name is Carrie Barsh, attorney with Greenberg Traurig, 333 Avenue of the Americas, here on behalf of the Dutch Docklands. I just want to make sure that my prior comments under the comprehensive plan in terms of the prematurity, the deprivation of property rights, and the like are incorporated by reference into the comments under the zoning for the conservation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That goes for my remarks, introductory remarks as well. So
Okay.
the judge will get it. Okay. So if you would allow me.
I just want to make sure there's no one else who wants to speak, and I want to just show for the record that no one else has come forward. Okay, go ahead.
So in closing, I have 3 points, and some of this is to answer some of the questions that were raised. So the first point was a very, very good question that was posed by one of the homeowners. Did we research the development of Eastern Shores and what was somehow proposed, how you would say, how it was presented to people buying homes in Eastern Shores? And we did research that. We have been to the Historical Museum in downtown Miami, We've been through all the plats. We've looked at a lot. And there isn't much. A couple of notes that say waterway, the word waterway. That in itself doesn't have a meaning, that would help a prospective buyer know what's going to be out there. Some of the promotional material from Eastern Shores did indicate this beautiful, pristine lake, but again, it's just in the sales brochure. It has no force of law. So we really didn't find dispositive answers on what was proposed, what was put forward when the Eastern Shores neighborhood subdivision was created. So that brings up a question of well, what if somebody really wanted to know? Let's say I was a lawyer and a zoning expert, and I was buying a house at the end of the canal facing Mall Lake, and I said, I want to know what these people have out there. What is that? I emailed the city, or I sent a letter, what is that Mall Lake zoned? And this brings me to my second point, where Mr. Williams mentioned something about existing zoning, or Mr. Kreisberg, you said, why are we changing the zoning? The truth is that these parcels are not zoned. We are zoning them. We are proposing to zone them conservation district, but there is no from category that we are zoning it from. It is not zoned. There is no zoning on these parcels. So we are zoning these parcels for the first time. So it's not a change to an existing zoning. It is giving these parcels actual zoning. So what other parcels is anyone aware of that in the city that don't have any zoning?
Is it required to have zoning on every parcel and every?
Pretty much, if there's a use associated with it.
Is it?
But there's no use associated with this. There's no activity there. There's no license. There's no business going on. So it's never been an issue. Now they want to do something there. It's an issue, but there is no zoning on there right now. So we have to act right now. That's the third point. Why are we doing this now? Well, there is no zoning. So there's a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity.
There was no zoning 10 years ago.
And the point here is, now that this has come up, and the homeowners and the city is aware that we have an uncertainty. This is ambiguous. This isn't clear. And this is why we're proposing this at this time, to eliminate uncertainty and ambiguity, to correct something that really it should have been zoned. I don't know why it wasn't. Perhaps because it was never deemed usable land. Perhaps the value is very low. I don't know. But at this time, we owe it to
be careful what you wish for.
I'm simply saying at this time, it seems a good policy to zone it, and the most appropriate zoning
or bad policy.
And the most appropriate zoning policy would mirror Aventura's, which is right across, an imaginary line right down the middle of that lake, and it's been good for them.
That's a little tiny.
Let me ask a question. If let's say that the council decides that they go through the steps of approving the rezoning and FLUMOD and everything that's got to go on here, right? And then down the road, when whatever developer it may be comes forward with some rock star great plan for the lake that might not work with the existing what might become the conservation district planning, can that be changed again to accommodate a different situation? Yes. So it's not irreversible, it is reversible. So yes. So basically, if indeed at the moment this is the best plan, that's okay. If for some reason some other unbelievable plan comes down the road, it's still open to be put forth to that. So in one respect, it's kind of like, okay, well, thus far, this is the best option that's come forward. Let's go with this option. If something better comes forward later on, we can address that better option later. It's not really shutting down anybody from anything. People could still come forward with, my
yes,
point is this is not irreversible.
Technically, you're correct. It is absolutely not irreversible. Okay. It's not often that conservation zone land is rezoned to a higher, more intense development category, but it's not impossible.
Mr. Chairman?
No, it would not be a variance. It would, and it could be something, again, we're saying in the conservation district, there are certain uses allowed. I mean, if it could be an amendment to that, or it could be a rezoning. Nothing is written in stone. Everything is reversible.
Okay. I'd like to know if I can get all my speeding ticket money back from that lake over all these years since it was private.
That's right. Well, no, because
and then I'm going to retire. Okay. Attorney.
Mr. Chairman, I want to weigh in on the question about what were the original owners of Eastern Shores, what were they told, what representations were made. And I can tell you that I have first-hand knowledge as to what happened because a very good friend of mine, very good real estate lawyer that I knew who unfortunately passed away a number of years ago, Marvin Green, bought a couple of lots on Eastern Shores back in 1971. And he convinced me to buy property there in the early 70s. I actually bought a lot on the water in Eastern Shores in 1974, and I intended to build my house there. And I remember going into a trailer, which used to be where the desert project is being proposed at the mall, and looking at the plat and meeting with the attorney for the then developer, Eastern Shore Sales Company, and I got to know William H. Walker Jr. from Blackwell Walker and Gray, which at that time was probably one of the top firms in the state. And I can assure you that neither Mr. Green nor myself nor some of the other folks that I knew that bought a lot there on the water back in the early 70s would have bought there if we had known that there was going to be some future project built on Mole Lake. In fact, the plat, if you look at the plat, it says Mole Lake. It doesn't say future home of floating homes. It says Mole Lake. And I think that while the city cannot make the argument that that the buyers had a right to rely on the representations that were made by the developer back then, I'm sure that the Eastern Shores folks can come up with a lot of testimony, including mine and others, that that's exactly what was represented by that developer of Eastern Shores in the early 70s and even before that. So I just want the record to be clear. It may cause me to have to recuse myself from any lawsuits because I might have to testify.
That's a strategy.
Okay.
But
on the record, can I just say that is, with all due respect, fairly absurd.
Really?
It said Mall Lake. What does it say? Future homes 50 years from now, floating homes. It's still Mall Lake. If they had one home on it, it would be a home on Mall Lake. So I have one very specific question about the statute as drafted, okay? So we went through all of this rigmarole on the statute, and now we get to uses permitted, okay? Passive outdoor, fishing, structures, wetlands, and then it goes, first it says, you can't have a building or structure part within the district shall be erected or used, altered or used, or land used in whole or part for other than one or more following specific uses. That's passive activity, structures, wetlands, and then it's E. Uses which do not impair the natural environment or disturb the natural ecosystem of the area and which are not in conflict with applicable water management and wildlife protection policies. Why couldn't they present a plan that falls under that restriction?
Technical zoning answer to that is that elsewhere in the zoning code, in our residential zoning districts, it lists under permitted uses residential uses, either dwellings or multifamily dwellings, but it lists that as a specific use. Elsewhere in the zoning, if there is no listing of that nature, it means that it is not permitted. So when it says uses which do not impair the natural environment, and on and on, that cannot really be referring to a named use that is permitted in another zone. So it's a catch-all that might be something, you know, again, in an area that is not named. So, so I mean, we could delete that if you don't. If you think that's too broad.
Ambiguous and
this does not allow residential development.
That's subject to argument.
Well, I'm telling you, this is how I'm writing it. If this statement is too broad, we can look at the statement. By the construct of the zoning code, the fact that residential, you know, single-family dwelling units are permitted
I just bring it up as to say that this whole method of trying to save the lake from something that's not happening is misguided.
Well, it's a policy decision.
Right.
It's not happening. Something is happening. There is a potential for this to happen, and acting at this
the way
time.
You went about it. I just have a difference.
But we were directed by the mayor and council.
I understand that.
Pretty much unanimous.
Okay. All right.
Actually, yes, unanimously.
But I don't think it's.
Okay, so to wrap things up.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Well, first, I want to reiterate something that I keep hearing over and over, and that is that pretty much all the residents that have spoken are in favor of the conservation of the lake. I haven't heard anybody say anything contrary to that. And I want to thank the Dutch representatives from Docklands and their lawyers for being here. And more than that, I'd like to thank all the residents for being here and putting their time in and their effort. Thank you.
All right. All right. Is there any further board discussion, or we're all good? Okay. And no more comments from staff?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. I guess at this point we'll entertain a motion. I guess so.
Okay. In reference to Article 15-007B, Mall Lake zoning amendment, make a motion that we pass that amendment.
Okay. All right. Did he kind of?
The best wording would be, I move that the board recommends approval as per the staff recommendation.
Recommends favorably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with reference to item 15-007B, I move that the board approves the motion for planning and zoning amendment. Is that right?
That works. I think we got the point. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second? Yes? Okay. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Also, since this is a public meeting, I just needed to state for the record that it is open to any citizen and public comments, although I think that's happened pretty well, but just as a matter of procedure and protocol, I needed to make that statement.
Nobody's coming up.
I see that. Okay, as far as our next meeting, do you have the date of the next meeting, and can you give us a little heads up as to what may be in the pipeline?
We have nothing. We have no applicants coming, so I do not know at this time if we will have a meeting. This item will be moving on to first reading in council, but as far as projects, I know that this coming Thursday, we have a couple of items coming to TRAD. I do not know if they'll be ready with their comments for our next cycle, but as usual, I'll keep you posted.
Great.
In general, the level of interest is high. We're getting a lot of calls from developers, architects, property owners. Think you'll be busy in future.
Good. Okay, I guess at this point, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
You know, you just schizophrenic. I don't want to talk to you. Don't talk to me.